13,000 square miles of America sit inside a federally protected quiet zone, where radio signals are restricted, cell service gets weird, and one wrong transmitter can ruin a billion-dollar experiment. Pull up a map of the United States, zoom in close enough, and the country starts to look less like a place and more like a cover story. A random Kansas coordinate once blamed one family for half the internet's crimes. A Utah desert base larger than Rhode Island sits behind restricted airspace and a history of nerve agent testing. A mountain in Virginia looks peaceful from above, but hides the federal government's backup plan underneath it. By the end of this video, you'll know how to read the blank spots on the map and why the most interesting parts of America are the parts you're not supposed to enter. Let's start in Kansas, where the map didn't hide a secret base, it created one. The Kansas coordinate that ruined a farm. A quiet Kansas farm gets accused of scams, stolen accounts, fraud, missing persons reports, and online threats. Police show up, angry strangers show up, business owners show up, claiming someone at this address is attacking their computers, all while the people living there have no idea what anyone is talking about. A company called MaxMind sold IP geolocation data, guesses about where internet users were located. When the system could not place an IP address accurately, it used a default point near the middle of the country. Bad move. That default landed on private property near Potwin, Kansas. Suddenly, a tiny family farm became a digital trapdoor. At one point, more than 600 million IP addresses were tied to that farm. Over 5,000 companies were pulling from the same database. So when scammers, hackers, or random internet weirdos could not be located, the map pointed to Kansas and said, "Try here." To a normal satellite image, the place looked like nothing. Grass, roads, farm buildings, no bunker, no guards, no razor wire. But inside databases used by companies, investigators, and automated systems, that little patch of land became one of the most suspicious places in America. The family sued MaxMind, saying the mistake brought fear, humiliation, and repeated visits from people chasing crimes that had nothing to do with them. That's when you realize the modern map is not just what you see on Google. The real map is the one behind it. The one made of coordinates, IP addresses, aviation zones, radio limits, and federal boundaries. And that brings us to Utah, where the blank spot is very real. Dugway Proving Ground, Area 52. About 90 miles southwest of Salt Lake City, the desert opens up into a massive restricted zone called Dugway Proving Ground. On a road map, it looks like empty high desert. On an aviation chart, it gets more interesting. This place sits inside restricted airspace tied to R6402A and B, a designation listed by the FAA for Dugway Proving Ground. Pilots are forced to keep out, unless cleared. The base covers more than 1,300 square miles, larger than Rhode Island, and Military One Source describes Dugway as a closed post with no public access. Visitors need a sponsor and a background check. That alone is enough to make people whisper, Area 52. But Dugway earned its reputation the old-fashioned way, with disturbing history. During World War II, the Army built fake German and Japanese villages at Dugway to test incendiary bombs. These were full-scale structures, built to study how fire behaved against enemy-style housing. Then came the Cold War. Chemical agents, biological defense research, weapons testing, desert silence. And in March 1968, that silence broke. Roughly 6,400 sheep were found dead after grazing in Skull Valley, just outside Dugway's boundaries. Investigators found they had been poisoned by VX, one of the deadliest nerve agents ever developed. The federal government later banned open-air testing of chemical and biological agents. So when people look at Dugway and ask, "Why can't I go there?" the answer is not aliens. The answer is worse. Paperwork, history, and a desert full of tests the public was never meant to stand next to. Dugway's map is easy to understand. Fence, gate, restricted airspace. The next map is stranger. It hides in plain sight across the mountains. The Appalachian Dead Zones. Deep in the mountains of West Virginia and Virginia, the map changes again. No giant fence, No secret base sign on every ridge. Just a massive protected silence. This is the National Radio Quiet Zone, about 13,000 square miles centered between Green Bank and Sugar Grove, West Virginia. It was created by the FCC and federal radio officials in 1958 to reduce radio interference around the National Radio Astronomy Observatory at Green Bank and U.S. Navy radio receiving facilities at Sugar Grove. The point is simple. Keep human noise from drowning out faint signals from space and sensitive receivers on Earth. From a map view, this area looks like normal Appalachia. Trees, ridges, long roads, small towns. But under the signal map, it becomes something else. A controlled silence. Green Bank is famous for radio astronomy. Sugar Grove is darker. The West Virginia Encyclopedia says Sugar Grove served Navy communications research, later functioned as an NSA-linked electronic listening post, according to press reports tied to the Snowden documents, and benefited from both the quiet zone and surrounding mountains. That's what gives the National Radio Quiet Zone its strange double identity. One side listens to space, the other listens to people. So when a pilot sees a GPS warning over Appalachia, or a traveler loses signal in the quiet zone, it does not mean they crossed into another dimension. But it does mean the map in your hand is missing layers. The public map says mountains. The signal map says silence. The aviation map says caution. And the intelligence map says listen carefully. That brings us to the most cinematic blank spot of all, a quiet mountain in Virginia that may be the closest thing America has to a backup command center. Home of the shadow government, Mount Weather. From above, Mount Weather looks almost boring, just a ridge in the Blue Ridge Mountains, roads, buildings, trees, the kind of place you could scroll past without blinking. But that's exactly the trick. Mount Weather sits near Bluemont, Virginia, roughly an hour west of Washington, D.C. Public intelligence describes it as a continuity of government facility operated by FEMA, sitting on a 434-acre mountain site with above-ground support buildings and even communications links to the White House Situation Room. Reports cited by public intelligence say the underground space is roughly 700,000 square feet. That is not a basement. That is a highly sophisticated underground complex. Mount Weather's Cold War story gets even stranger. The government originally used the mountain for weather work. Then the Bureau of Mines bored a test tunnel. In the 1950s, the Army Corps of Engineers built out the facility under the code name Operation High Point. Public intelligence reports tunnel roofs were reinforced with 21,000 iron bolts driven into the rock. This was not built for tourism. This was built for national survival. The facility reportedly had its first full-scale activation during the 1965 Northeast blackout. It was meant to keep government functions alive if Washington was hit, cut off, or wiped out. Then came December 1st, 1974. TWA Flight 514 crashed into Mount Weather, killing all 92 people on board. The crash helped push Mount Weather into public awareness and damaged an underground line tied to the emergency broadcast system. That is how one of America's most secretive facilities became harder to keep quiet. After 9/11, Mount Weather returned to the rumor mill. News reports said senior leaders were moved to a secure facility west of Washington. The Guardian described Mount Weather as a top-security underground installation with its own police and fire department, built to protect government officials during a catastrophic attack. Picture the contrast. On Google Earth, Mount Weather is a wooded ridge with fences and buildings. Under that ridge, the story becomes tunnels, blast protection, emergency communications, backup leadership, and the quiet question nobody likes asking. If the government has a hidden replacement center, what else is the public version of the map leaving out? So, what did we find? In Kansas, the Forbidden Map is not a military chart. It's a private data system that turned an innocent farm into a digital crime scene. At Dugway, the Forbidden Map is physical. Gates, background checks, restricted airspace, and a desert base with a chemical and biological testing history dark enough to make Area 52 feel less like a nickname and more like a warning. In Appalachia, the forbidden map is invisible. Radio restrictions, GPS notices, listening stations, and federally protected silence spread across the mountains. At Mount Weather, the forbidden map is vertical. The surface says, mountain. The underground story says, continuity of government. The map you use every day is not fake. It is incomplete. It shows roads, towns, rivers, and buildings, but it rarely shows the systems underneath. Databases, airspace rules, radio limits, buried facilities, and emergency plans that quietly dictate where Americans can go, fly, transmit, or even be seen. The forbidden maps of America are not always blurred. Sometimes they're hiding, just below the surface. Have you found a strange blurred spot, restricted zone, or weird dead zone in your state? Drop the coordinates in the comments. I may use them in a future video. And tell me this, which one is creepier? The desert base, the mountain bunker, the silent zone, or the Kansas farm that got blamed for half the internet?